What's up, everyone? Welcome to the Core Podcast covering all things Apple TV Plus. My name is Jim, and I'm joined by my co-hosts Luke and Kyle. And today we continue our coverage of Apple TV Plus's Foundation. Today we are covering Season 2, Episode 10, titled "Your Boys Jim, Kyle, and Luke, aka Dawn, Day, and Dust, have made it to the finale and completed our coverage of Seasons 1 and 2." Actually, it's Creation Myth. Anyway, but before we get started,
I was
as
like, wait,
always,
what?
As always, a little Core Podcast housekeeping. You guys didn't know that Apple TV renamed
They
the
renamed it?
episode after us
Yeah.
after they saw our coverage.
Yeah, I would love that promo
Guys,
for
this
season
isn't going to
3.
be our normal. Yeah, guys, this isn't going to be our normal housekeeping for the Core. We want to thank you all for following along with us for 2 seasons of Foundation. We know for a lot of you it was a rewatch. Some of you it was your first time watching. We hope you had as much of a blast as me and Kyle did, and rewatches as much as Luke did. Luke is finally here. I can't wait to hear from Luke. But guys, we can't wait to hear from you guys. Discord.com. BingetownTV.com/Discord. Jump on there. Talk to us about Foundation. We're all on the same playing field now. We could talk about theories for Season 3. Season 3, as soon as it debuts in a couple days, all of the above. But either way, guys, we thank you. It has been a blast. If you want to support the podcast, all we ask is you hit that subscribe button and just follow along with us. Or if you want to give us a 5-star review, we'd love that too. But really, hit that subscribe button and follow along, because now is when the party is getting started. Season 3 is here. But otherwise, guys, let's just get started. We have the finale. This is one of our first times in a while where we're just talking one episode. We'll see how long we go. Kyle, as always, I want to start with you. What do you do? Go. What did you think of this finale?
I think it was really good. I pulled a gym and I watched it on my phone, but not
Okay.
because I'm crazy. It was because I was on a plane. And I think it did a really good job. As I was noticing throughout the episode, and I'm sure we'll talk about it as we get into our kind of scene by scene, storyline by storyline discussion of, they did a really good job of wrapping up a lot of things, or like bringing a lot of, let's say, references or things back into the show in like a satisfying way. I thought like season 2 as like a storyline, like a completed storyline, feels good. And then I'm also excited for where like season 3 is going. There was maybe one or two couple nitpicky things. It's a finale. There's always going to be maybe some things that you can dissect a little bit that maybe didn't make you feel fantastic. But I think overall, looking back at episode and then season as a whole, I had a great time. I would say I'm fairly satisfied with everything. Some storylines naturally are going to be better than others. I mean, the Demerzel stuff was just fucking awesome. Day was incredible. Yeah. We've talked a little bit throughout the season about how clearly the Gale and the Harry stuff was kind of the B plot, at times C plotty and things like that. But I think they're setting us up still for something fantastic in season 3, because all of longtime listeners, put your mules up. We're going to get there in season 3. So they did a good job with this episode, I think.
Mm-hmm.
We had a few Discord members say they weren't down with the mule sounds. A couple said they were down. So I don't know, Kyle. We'll have to figure out if we're going to continue this or not. But I love that you always go first, because drop the mic. I don't have much else to say. I totally agree. I really did like this finale. I have a few things I definitely want to talk about. I have some theories for season 3 that I can't wait to talk to Luke about for the first time. But let's just get started, and I'll talk a little bit more as we go.
All right. So by the nature of how this episode plays out, I think there's only one correct way to go through these buckets. And so we actually have to start with the terminus space bucket here, where everything that's going on with Constant, Day, Belrios, all that, the Hober Mallow stuff, just because of how it leads into some revelations for Demerzel and the Empire in the next bucket. So we're going to start here. And it really starts with what you guys said that you really enjoyed, which was Day's just huge grin on his face for having have just been this empire that just destroyed the hell out of the Foundation's planet, right? He's happy. He knows what he's going to do next. He wants to find the other 7 Foundation ally planets, plus the 8th being Siwenna, the other planet we visited earlier in this season. And he's just going to snuff it out right at the core, because it's time to just clear Harry Seldon out of the Empire. It's no longer going to be a problem. He thinks it's all going to go well. And then the big thorn in his side ends up being Chekhov's gun that Kyle called out forever ago, which was the castling, the device that Hober Mallow brought to the table in his intro scene where he can literally teleport places. I'm going to be honest that there's some things here that how I have them written as notes in summary points, I could be wrong. I might have misinterpreted them a little bit differently than you guys. So we'll talk about it all. But just off this initial reaction of how Day's plan is going to evolve, and then him telling Rios what to do, which Rios is finally going to be an open rebellion here and say no, he's not going to go forth with teleporting the fleet to the next planet, checking all these things off. Kind of starts with the tension super high, and they stay super high for this whole entire bucket. So pass it over to you guys of your initial thoughts on the ramifications of episode 9.
Yeah, there was a lot of electricity here between Day and Hober and Day and Bell. Day, Lee Pace, this is a maniacal person, somebody who just had this conversation with Demerzel and is deciding violence is the answer. It's time to rage. And this was, I guess, predictable from Day. We talked about this throughout this season where Day is very, very easily provoked. And he had the biggest provocation ever from Demerzel on what she said to him. And I'm assuming she's pretty much assuming, too, that that's what he was going to do. I have to admit, I took the bait here when we started getting the answers. And when I say the answers, I mean the turn here where Hober says and the Spacers say, we're going to blow this mother trucker up, right? They're all this whole entire fleet is going. I took the bait. I didn't think, and I believe you would agree, Kyle. We talked about it. I thought that Hober didn't do what he was supposed to do with the Spacers, and it was just part one of his quest. So I wasn't expecting him or even Bell to be a part of a death scenario for themselves, an end of their story. And hey, Hober pierced the hide of the Empire. And I was listening to some old podcasts we did during editing, and Kyle, you were talking about how is him jumping into Trantor his piercing, or was it too obvious? And is there a next big thing? And there was a next big thing, and this was huge. And there was some emotional moments between with Bell, with Hober, with Constant, and everything. But we won't get there yet. Kyle, what did you think?
Yeah, I would agree that we got with the Hober and the Spacer stuff. And when we talked about it, we kind of both felt like agreed that the opportunity was still there. It just felt like it had failed at the first bite of the apple, but we would come back for a second bite. I don't know if there was, the eternal optimist in someone could have maybe predicted that that's actually what happened and that they had a conversation off screen that we weren't privy to, which seems to have happened, and that it set all of this up. The Bell part of it, I think, is maybe we can talk more about that in detail of how much was it on just the fly of him with the castling thing or what. That seemed like it was kind of on the fly stuff. But I think as a whole, this was, I think, very satisfying, again, because they're bringing back scenes that we saw previously in the season that meant things, and they're playing large roles in the storyline, so it can be like, oh, haha, I remember that scene in episode 3 when this thing got introduced, and it's cool that it's come back around. I think the one thing for me, and it's just a personal, maybe emotional thing, I think I'm just more sad about the fact that Bell and Hober are gone from the show pretty obviously. I don't think there's any way that they're getting out of the situation that they found themselves in, which is just, I think, personally unfortunate. I just liked the characters themselves, but I think that the way everything went down felt satisfying to me.
Yeah. And I have to admit, a little bit in the moment, I was doing a wait, what? Because, Hober's explaining the deceit and the Spacers explaining what they're doing to destroy the fleet. And I was like, okay, give me a second. I need to process what the hell they just said.
Right.
And they show what Hober has on his wrist, and that is something that was brought up, and we didn't talk too much about it in the prior episodes. It was brought up, and he was like, "Oh, I don't know. I got it when I came back. It looked, maybe they tagged me. I wasn't sure what it was." So I'm glad it came back and it lit up and was part of what he was doing with his plan. But yeah, I need a little bit of a second just to let everything register.
Mhm.
Now, Luke, I mean, you don't have to ask us. What do you think? What was did everything register for you while it was happening in the moment? Were you bang, 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 understanding exactly what this deceit was?
Mhm. Well, okay, so I have a broader conversation about the whole episode, which it's tough to talk about now because it's really related to Sal dying and how that affects
Mm.
the vision of the future. Because at what point does the future actually get changed? Because if Sal dying in front of Gale to the mule doesn't necessarily need to happen anymore, why did the Hober piercing the Empire's hide need to happen in the way it did? And maybe it didn't happen in the way it did, which would then lead us to believe that there's a chance the Empire stays around longer than what was initially prophesized in that vision. Because remember, the mule says, "Oh, you're from the age of the Empire." Well, Demerzel preserves the genetic dynasty at the end of this episode. So is that going to persist farther? All because of the change of the future, because it doesn't seem like the Hober Mallow piercing the Empire's hide changed. Like that all happens here. And I was pretty satisfied with all that. But now I'm starting to question of like how much of what we know about the future is going to be changed because of the events of what's going on in these buckets. And that's not an answer you
Yeah.
guys will have, but
Harry says it multiple times this season. He says it this episode. There's infinite ways to arrive at the inevitable. So, like you said, Luke, he could have pierced the hide, and this is what he did. But maybe it was a different thing than what the mule knew in that present for him or whatever, and it
Mhm.
could affect the fact that the Empire lasts a little bit longer, or there's I don't. We'll talk about it. Is there a
Okay.
chance Salvor, has
Yeah,
another
we'll
Salvor?
save save that for the other buckets. But yeah, in terms of like everything else that happened here though, I really liked this, like the events and like how it worked out, especially like Day just screaming like him
Oh,
getting in the
freaking
fight, being all
badass!
bloody. He's like, I fucking love it. Like
Yeah,
he's actually just like headbutting and smiling. Like he's been the fighter. He's been the fighter Day
yeah.
since the first scene of this season, with him on Trantor. But overall, like I love Belrios as a character so much. Like when Hober's talking about the plan and explaining everything that he did to screw over the Empire, he says even your general there, like he figured it out halfway through on the fly, which is just so much respect because Belrios is one of my favorite characters. And keep in mind, I do want a top 5 favorite character list at the end of this episode. And Rios would definitely be on mine. He's just so memorable. Like I didn't even realize like how late into the game he gets introduced because it's like halfway through the season, and yet he's such a memorable part of the Foundation show. That and same with Hober Mallow, of course. Like this whole death was something I was not looking forward to. I would have loved to have Hober for at least one more season, but it's not really possible with the time skip. So they really just cleaned up all the characters that they kind of had to and moved on. But overall, I felt the emotion, like just jumping ahead a little bit to the Constant and Hober situation there too. It seems like Constant gets picked up at the end in the vault. So whatever that means, I'm sure that's going to transport into the future. Otherwise, what's really the point of showing all that? So she's going to stick around, but everybody else in this bucket is dead. And that's a sad thing because a lot of good characters that we lose here.
It was
Yeah,
interesting that it ends up being Hober as Harry's agent deals a blow to the Empire, and then Belrios as Demerzel's agent deals a blow to Day specifically.
yeah.
So it was interesting that he kind of got outplayed by two people at the same time with somewhat different motives, potentially aligned motives, if you move around and shift perspectives enough to make them line up in a particular way. Because Demerzel says to Belrios, however many episodes ago, like I chose you for a reason. And we talked about it on the podcast recording of we were feeling like that reason was because he was capable of doing something like this. In that this Day in particular is known to get out of control. Belrios has already said no before. He is someone that when is confronted by, a moral choice, something that is against his principles, although he chose to blow up Terminus when it came to, in his opinion, arbitrarily destroying all these other planets, he wasn't actually going to go through with that. And I think, I don't know how much Harry could have worked that into his own plans. Did he know of Belrios specifically? I'm sure he probably did at some point. Bell seems like a somewhat famous name in the galaxy, potentially, or unless the Empire suppresses that information. But I loved the kind of dance that was there of Demerzel and Harry, and then Day kind of somewhat oblivious almost, although he was aware of everything that was happening. He knows that Hober is an agent of Harry, had the conversation with Harry and all of those things, but his self-image, his self-aggrandizement, his just kind of view that he is that guide pal was never going to let him fathom that they could actually get one over on him. And just like the look of shock too on his face when he's out in space, it just like, I think was a perfect way. And as he kind of floats towards the monument to his own fucking vanity and over aggressiveness and kind of insanity, I think was just a kind of a perfect way to sweep him.
It looked amazing as always.
Yeah.
Just the background shot of that was
as
incredible.
Always. Yeah. Yeah. And then we get, the conversation too with Hober and Belrios. They have that level of respect for each other. Although you'd think, if you think about like their origins as characters when we meet them, completely opposite. Belrios is unbelievably selfless. Everything he does seems to be for other people, for this level of morality. And Hober is someone that just saves himself in his own hide. But then the two of them are the people that kind of topple this evil tyrant and dictator and then kind of toast to each other in the aftermath of it. I thought was just well done.
And let me just say, like, that specific scene when they're talking, well, one, like the wine gag like was funny, and it just turns out that it was shitty or whatever it was. It's like, yeah, you probably uncorked it wrong. Either way, the acting in this scene was so damn good because what you could feel the anxiety that they had because they were like talking and trying to distract themselves, but they kept like turning, like looking at the inevitable explosions. I really think like just masterclass of acting right here in their subtle just facial movements, how they were delivering their lines, like, and then laughing it off, but then getting serious again. It was just so damn good. And of course, Bell brings up the drink cheers that he went over with Glowin. Like that was just a thing. Like it was just so damn good. And it hurts me again to just watch Hober and Bell die because I don't see any way that they can bring them back, like in any form.
No, I'd be upset.
Yeah.
That was such an emotionally strong scene that I would be upset if they get brought back.
Yeah. And I think that they almost introduced us to the concept. For Bell, I think him as a character will live on through Glowin, who we find out is actually alive. I think that the role that Bell could play can be played in a certain way by him. And then, as we all know, Hober Mallow's DNA is going to move on through our constant.
Perfect setup.
Yeah.
For the mule.
I thought she was going to say something where it was like, when she was like, my name is, and then they Hope. And then she was like, nah, I'm just kidding. And then she like, that would be a perfect name for this daughter. And then boo, they sent her off and it would be like,
Jimmy, isn't that the name of the Phoenix Force next target after? I always think of that when I hear the name Hope, and it's just funny that she was just kind of making a joke. You never actually learn her name though.
She was supposed to be the salvation of the mutants after they were snuffed out by Scarlet Witch. But when Hope from the 100,
yep,
Kyle's favorite.
Now, how can we connect Hope to the mule? They end in E. It's what? Consonant, vowel, consonant, E. I mean,
four letters.
Yeah, 4 letters. I don't know. Again, when we talk, like Luke said, with the vault aspect of it, it seems like we're going to be bringing these people into the future in some way. So, because one, I think a concern with the whole Hober Mallow and Brother Constant's kid is the mule was always the time is an aspect. So then it was like, okay, is he an ancestor? But now it feels like we're kind of moving back into the territory of, is he the child? And it's going to be so funny how completely wrong that it's all going to be. But if it hits, if it is,
and let me cue up just what we're talking about there, because we have been dancing around it. So this is one of the things I actually did not remember from my first watch, which was over a year, maybe 2 years ago at this point. Like, of course, I remembered the whole Bell and Hober scene. I remember Constant surviving. but I didn't actually remember this moment when she gets picked up by the vault, and then you see Harry again, you see Vault Harry, and then you see everybody that was there, including her dad and the director of the foundation, and then we see Glawin, of course, and then the big reveal was Polly's still alive. I didn't actually remember that they were all alive, so this was a shock to me again. But what I will say is that I'm a little disappointed in the director living, just because he was like bleeding out. It wasn't just saving him and teleporting him away, but I'm sure there's a way for the molecules in the vault to replicate blood and organs, is how they can like explain it away. I just don't remember how he got healed, or how he could have gotten healed.
Yeah, so how do we know that they're actually alive?
Yeah.
It's tough because I mean, Harry says, what does he say? Like the vault can do many things or whatever vague ass statement he gets. I mean, was it like an actual spaceship, like a physical, tangible spaceship that was floating in space? Are they existing on a separate plane? I have literally no idea.
Yeah.
I will say here that I did call out that the vault was lighting up as
You did.
Trantor was blowing up, and I didn't know what that meant, and I would have not guessed that it would have saved every citizen of. Did I say Trantor earlier? I meant
Yeah, it's
Terminus,
okay.
obviously, but
Mhm.
there is, in my mind, a chance that some or all are similar to what Harry is inside the vault. I mean, some signs could be exactly what you said, Luke, where, I mean, Glaywin did look like he had his injuries still. So he looked like directly from how he was on Terminus. But I was a little weirded out that the director wasn't like, oh shit, I'm about to die from a stab wound. But again, it can easily be that the vault has magical powers that can heal a wound or whatever it is. Obviously, Constant has to be a person right now, but we know that humans can enter the vault while other people or other things in the vault are holograms. So we'll see. It is, I mean, there's a few things in this episode, specifically with Harry and how he survived, physical Harry survived, where it's like, okay, guys, suspend that the belief here. Let's just deal with it.
I
Yeah,
buy
I
that
think
one
Huge
almost
ass
more
fault.
than the vault just sucking everybody up and then saving them.
Well, it's also easy because they gave us that. I think with things with Harry, typically we get some type of explanation for things. When he's involved in something, I feel like we always eventually get a scene where it's like, okay, here's what I did, or here's what
Yeah.
happened. So I feel like with the vault thing, they're going to have a conversation with Vault Harry, and he's going to divulge information in some way that like explains, I would hope, what the hell is going on and what happened.
Mhm.
And at some point, you have to wonder, and this goes back to what you were saying, Luke, about the mule and Hober piercing the hide and Salvor and her death, and how things may have changed and how the future may have changed. Could it be that the big thing that changed everything was that Harry, aka Vault Harry, made his decision based on information he shouldn't have known, as in
Mhm.
the Hober Mallow stuff? Did that make things happen in a different way? And the reason I say that is how much, or how confident are we that this Harry is still fully on the track that original Harry expected him to be? I mean, did original Harry really know everything that just happened was going to happen? The vault turning into
Yeah,
an
there's no way.
enormous planet slash ship, and obviously I would assume he didn't realize or know that Sal was going to visit Vault Harry somehow and tell him about Hober Mallow, and then Harry was going to decide not to go with logic and to get pissed off that he's the sample, the person, the thing of the experiment that's not supposed to do anything extra, no variables here. He took a chance and made a decision.
I could see that being a
So
thing, especially with how it played out, because specifically it was Salvor that maybe had that rippling impact, because again, they introduced this idea of the future might not be certain, or is it certain? There's a bunch of ways to get to places. And for us, it was always like, that was always thought of strictly through the event of her death. But could the real manifestation of that be what she did when she was alive, being giving Vault Harry information that he probably shouldn't have had, which
And everything
then is a way to change that future.
and
So it's
everything
kinda like
about
not a bait
her.
and switch, but like they're showing us the flourish, but like actually what's going on that's really, really important is happening underneath the table.
Yeah, and everything about Sal since the moment we've met her is that she's the outlier that Harry had no idea about.
Couldn't plan for. Yeah.
So everything that she does from the moment she was shown on our screen till the moment she apparently dies, Harry wasn't accounting for. And telling Vault Harry about Hober Mallow is a pretty big thing.
I guess to put a pin in this storyline, I am still even after talking it out, like I'm firmly on the side that the vault saved them and they're all biologically alive inside the vault for now. And with the
Yeah.
time distortion thing that they just put out there randomly and it wasn't super consistent earlier this season, they can explain it away in a sci-fi manner that I'll believe that they're all these actors are all still going to be there for season 3, and it'll make sense once they give us some half-assed explanation.
How do we feel about a ruling on Glawen joining the Foundation? Do I get that, or do we
You
need to
get
see
that.
in season 3?
No, you get it.
Well, if he's
Put
like,
it-
"Oh, thank you, but I can't stay," I'm gonna be so pissed.
Yeah, because if his next time on the screen is he's whipping out a gun and trying to fight them all because they're against the Empire, then you
Yeah.
don't get the point. So the point is
Alright,
being
fine.
delivered to you, but it's not. You can't grab it yet until season 3
It-
starts.
Okay.
It is hilarious though with how this show works, where Kyle's like, "Dude, Glawen joined the Foundation," and then we're like, "Oh, he's dead. Kyle sucks, bro." And then it's like, "Oh wait, he's alive."
Yeah,
Kyle, good
yeah.
job. Good
The
game.
point is in the mail, Kyle. So
All right.
be on the lookout.
I'll be waiting at the door to sign for it.
Okay. Any final thoughts before we move to Trantor?
I don't
Just-
think so. Actually, the one thing I'm thinking as we're talking about this is, loved the fight with Day, Hober, Bell, great television, but like, how much did it really matter? Like, couldn't they like? Did Day have a way to escape the fate of the ship blowing up anyway? Like,
yeah.
if Bell gets airlocked, then would Day have been able to figure out that there was the external cleaner thing, and he would have a day of oxygen and still probably run out of it? Like, I felt like maybe there was no actual way out for him, but the way that it happened is the meaningful part. I was just kind of laughing, thinking in my head, like, I don't think there was actually any way out for him.
Personal gratification.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Pretty much
And
what it was.
obviously, the longer you let him think, maybe
Yeah.
there was something that. But I will say, it was satisfying. What a badass
Yeah.
fight scene. And I'm glad that Day pretty much won the fight with both of them, and he was tricked at the end just because it's got to be canon that he's an absolute badass, because he had help from Demerzel, but he wasn't supposed to. Nobody's really supposed to be able to fight those blind angels or whatever they were called. So the fact that he was a badass against them, he should be a badass against Bell and definitely Hober. So I'm glad that was there. But the acting between all three parties in the fight scene, but Day specifically with Lee Pace, like you said, when he's like, "I love it," like that kind of
Yeah.
stuff was so good, so freaking.
He was
good.
like putting them in headlocks and flipping. Like he was just having a
man.
ball out there. He looked great while he was doing it. But
And
okay.
and honestly, Lee Pace is Day, or not Lee Pace, Day in that scenario. And Kyle, you're Day. You only have one episode left of being Day. You can let me know if you feel the same way. But I feel like that's how this Day would have wanted to go out. It's not like he's going to sit on his ass and be like, "Oh shit, this ship's going to blow up." I feel like he would have just picked a fight anyway, just so he could throw down, have a
Yeah,
little
he's got-
violence in his life, have a little excitement.
Always interested in making my mark.
You did leave a mark, man. Give you that.
Oh, yeah.
And really quickly, not a huge deal. I'm assuming that when Day takes off his personal aura on Terminus, that's why it's off on the ship, right? And they can punch him.
Sure.
Is that
Yeah,
just-
I guess.
Yeah, we'll go with that.
Why not?
Okay, let's move over to Trantor. And this is already after Demerzel had just left. So she got out while there was like the last opportunity. So she teleported back. I don't even know what she used her little, like, did they even say? Like, she just
She
had
had a
like
jump ship.
she had a jump ship. Okay. So
Yep.
she returns, and this whole beginning part is her confronting Rue and Dusk, just openly talking about everything. It's a very similar scene that we had going back to the Maiden all the way back in season 1, when she's just everything in Demerzel wants to make a different decision against her directive, but her directive trumps everything. And what Cleon the First did to her, she both yearns for him, she says, but at the same time curses him because she doesn't know if she's yearning for him simply because of the directive. It's a very good summation of her whole entire character, this scene, how she's interacting with them. She wants to make this clean, and she doesn't want to just blindly follow this directive. So it was just a good scene to reemphasize what we just learned about her last episode with her whole backstory. It was brutal as hell when she just snaps Rue's wrist. She's like,
Yeah.
and you don't even get to see it. She off screen kills them the same way she did on the Maiden. Just, it's so cool. It's so good. And I just love Demerzel as a character. It just keeps reemphasizing like what we already know. And then she confirms here, or I guess it gets confirmed here, that she was the one that actually hired the Blind Angels to then blame Sareth, who she's going to then put into jail and have executed down the line, because the idea is that no matter what happens, at the end of the day, she cannot go against the idea that the genetic dynasty needs to live on. So every question we've had this entire season, like why she's banging Day, like unprompted, like why she would allow the genetic dynasty to break in favor of Sarah. All of that gets kind of answered here, where she was never going to allow it. And you guys were pretty much right on that track by the end, especially after last podcast. Like you all agreed that. So yeah, so like her plan, and then I'll pass it over to you guys. I think the only other thing I wanted to point out is she also knows about Sareth and Dawn having hooked up. So she's going to do something about that in the next couple of scenes we'll talk about. But this is just the cue up and the death of Rue and Dusk.
I just love the like Shakespearean tragedy that this storyline and this planet has really turned into. I really love it's very difficult for Demerzel, obviously, but I just love what they've done with it's not her being like so robotic about things. It's just so much more interesting that she has this internal conflict about everything, but can't really do anything differently. And she just wants everyone else to like just be cool so that she doesn't have to do these things that she doesn't want to do, but she literally has to do. And to add in the conversation with Dusk, I mean, it's so sad as she just, brings back that memory, and he's playing her and acting like he still loves her when I don't think he necessarily does. Maybe he does, maybe that's also, again, a part of the tragedy. But I think the Dawn aspect of it too is like, oh my God, like my baby boy, like you're forcing my hand here. Like I don't have a choice. You think that I have a choice maybe, but like I will hunt you down because I literally have no choice. I raised you, but I will kill you because I literally have to. And it's like, oh man, the star-crossed lover. I mean, there's so many just fun aspects to this.
They've planted these seeds so well throughout the first 2 seasons of the show with Demerzel. Me and Kyle were able to guess certain aspects of
sniffed her
Demerzel's character. Yeah, we had her, dude. We had her. No, but we were able to guess certain aspects of it. But at the same time, the seeds that were planted with the heartbreaking scene with her and Tania Miller's character, and the situation where she kills Dawn, and the scene that she has right here, but also the big reveal scene being, like you said, Luke, 1 episode prior. She is such an unbelievably complex character, and the acting top notch, because you guys already said it. She's sitting there talking to someone again that she's been here and she'll always be here. She's basically birthed these children and watched them grow from baby till darkness, and over and over and over and over again. And she doesn't know if she actually loves them. She can't even tell. And, it's the tragedy that you said, Kyle, when we had last episode where Cleon the First said, I love you. Will you marry me? Will you stay with me forever? And she says, I will. And he's like, I wish I would have asked you that before I changed you to make you
Mhm.
say that. And going with the Dawn stuff where she says, I will hunt you down until the end of time because I won't die. She basically has to say that to Tania Miller's character as well in that scene where she poisons her and says, well, if I don't poison you right now, if I don't kill you, you can't walk out that door. Well, technically you can, but I'll just chase you. And
Mhm.
that's really majorly setting up what we're going to get for the next season. And the big question here will be, how much of it will we see because of this time jump? We're going to have a scenario where for the next 150 years, jumping ahead a little bit, but Gale and Harry will be woken up once a year just to make sure everything's still good, and they're going to be basically frozen until it's the time to throw down with the mule. How much of that time are we going to see? Demerzel will always be our Demerzel, which is perfect. Exactly what we want because we always want Demerzel on our screens. But how much will we get to see of this Dawn and Sereth and Demerzel hunting them down? Or will we just get a scenario where we know that this is a huge deal for the Empire and we just hear about it in stories and we find out that she eventually does kill them or something like that? That's something I'm interested to see what choices they make because we know that sometimes they do decide stories just end at the end of a season because time has to go by in this show.
I definitely think we're not going to be seeing it. I think it's going to follow the same formula it's been doing in the past, where we very rarely see what goes on in those time jumps. So I think it's going to be more of like where we're at now and how the butterfly effect of the past led to where we're at versus like actually going back and seeing any of it. And I just wanted on the board now that I like the idea of the mule being a descendant of Dawn and Sereth too. Like that can be
Mm.
a potential possibility. I love the moment where Dawn was actually Dusk was actually marking Demerzel in that moment, which then triggers Dawn to remember the conversation that happened earlier this season where green is the weird chroma, it's the sign of envy, and it's a sign of like something is wrong, and that triggers him to go and free Sereth in a little fight scene, and then they do the classic romance of just running away together and getting away, and then they have a very important conversation where they call in and talk to Demerzel right after she finds out the entire fleet blew up and Hober Mallow and destroyed everything and Day is dead. Right after she finds this out, she has to talk to Dawn, and we're talking about this. We've been talking about the conversation. She has to go and hunt him down. Who knows where that's going to lead in season 3? But this was just a great conversation because this Dawn rocked too at the end of the day. Like he had some really good personality traits. I don't think he's going to have the opportunity to become the evil Day because he just will not be in that environment of the Empire. He doesn't have the Day to learn from and grow into that way. So hopefully this leads to a really fun butterfly effect where now you can actually see a scenario in season 3 where if the genetic dynasty is still going under Demerzel, there could be another Lee Pace that is just like an ancestor or a descendant of Dawn, like a natural descendant of Dawn and Sereth. So
Right.
that leads to really fun plot lines potentially. Or like I just threw out there just casually on the board, I don't actually believe it that much, but there's also the possibility that their descendant could be related to the mule in some fashion, which could also be very fun. So just a lot of fun theory crafting material happens from this single conversation. And then what Demerzel is going to do about it, who the hell knows?
I was going to ask you guys if you thought there was a chance that their child, their child's child, their child's child's child, depending on how far into the future we go, is going to look like Lee Pace and going to have Day. Maybe they take Lee Pace and use prosthetics or CGI to alter him a little bit. I mean, he obviously shouldn't look exactly the same,
Yeah.
but of course, I would be down. That would be very interesting. Everybody drink. I know we've already drank a few times in this episode. It would be cool. We talked about it a million times with every storyline that there was a possibility that one of the Cleons could get out. The original Dawn that wanted to get out. We always said it would be very, very interesting and very cool to see in the storylines a Day, a Cleon, etc. that doesn't have the nurture, right? And we could see if he becomes the Day that we all know
Mhm.
throughout these years.
Yeah, it's always always being it's only really happened once, but to end a season and be like, damn, we're not gonna probably get the conclusion of that. Like watching this Dawn grow probably won't happen on the screen, which is a little unfortunate. Kind of the same way it happened with Day in season 1 of he was coming back after his trip and was going to maybe institute some reforms. And we see the impact of that in this season, but we didn't really get to actually live it so much in that season of season 1. But yeah, I selfishly, like, I want to watch all of it. I want that to be season 2.5 where like they put out a movie of like, Dawn and Sareth versus Demerzel. But I can see a scenario where they actually, Dawn and Sareth, maybe set up like a somewhat of like a fledgling rival Empire Kingdom, something like that. And seeing the effects of that, I think would be very interesting, telling their story that way. Can any of their descendants survive in a scenario where they're defeated? I don't know. I feel like Demerzel would totally go through the logical mind frame of, we got to kill all of them because they're not abominations, but like, we can't have any challenge to the rule. It was interesting that she specifically said, she's so worried about the idea of like an actual genetic heir, because it's like, well, what if there's something happens? What if something's wrong with them? What if they're a bad leader? And we know naive romantic Day of, he doesn't need to lead, he just needs to be loved. And it's like, all right, cocksmack, like you get laid once and you think that you're the fucking cock of the walk. But that just felt somewhat interesting too, of a Luke, that just makes me think of the mule in some way, but is the mule maybe the mirror of that, of like someone who wasn't loved?
Maybe someone who had to be on the run at all times.
You're right. It would be something that he just, he grew with that like revenge mindset almost, where he was kicked out of everything that he was owed. But granted, I guess there must be a little bit more nuance to it because of that scene we get at the very end of the season. So I'll save that conversation for when we talk about the Ignis bucket.
It's possible though, for sure.
I really hope there's some more payoff than just Sareth and Dawn just got away and happily ever after, and we never find out about their genetic descendants. There has to be something.
I can definitely see a scenario where they go back to the home planet and it's strong enough to protect them, and they're able to, be under protection and live throughout these years, but not really be able to do much except stay in their fortress or something. I mean, we know the deal. The Empire / Day, all he does is this, and lasers just shoot people in the head and kill them. So it's a little OP, but they did really plant seeds this season about how Sareth in Day's mind was needed. The Empire might not seem like it, but it's dwindling a little bit, and her power was necessary. Again, Day believed her power from her planet was necessary, her kingdom, to make Empire stronger. Maybe that was planting some seeds that it is strong enough maybe to protect, not maybe have war, but at least just protect a prince. I don't know, but I kind of do. I like the constant child being the mule, but if you're going to say that Sareth and Dawn's child becomes the mule, I can see it in a scenario where no, their home planet cannot protect them. They're constantly on the run for the rest of their lives, and he was born out of hatred, rage, and constant fear, and he hates Empire, and he somehow, we know that Empire falls at some point, and for whatever reason, moves on to Gale. That's the reason why I'm not sure if there's really a connection, because he really focuses on Gale, not I hate Empire, I hate Demerzel. My last question for you guys is, and this is really nuanced and probably not a big deal at all, but I just want to talk it out quickly. We have the scenario that we guessed, right? That Demerzel was pulling the strings, that Day, Dawn, and Dusk don't really matter. They matter visibly to Empire, but she's pulling the strings. She has to, by her directive, follow Empire and do what's right for Empire. She snaps the neck of Dawn. She kills a Dusk. but she's never killed a day. Is there a scenario where she can't kill a day, you think? Because that's the only reason why, like, if he wants to have kids and he wants to ruin Empire by making an heir, a natural heir, why doesn't she just snap his neck and get a new one immediately? Why do this convoluted plot to frame Sereth and have all of this happen for all of this time, risk Dawn falling in love with Sereth and Day changing this and changing that and going rogue just so she could say, "Oh, by the way, Sereth attacked you, and now I'm going to put her in prison, so you're not going to marry her."
I think it's notable that she hasn't killed a day, but I just think it's not something the story is needed
Yeah,
at this point. More so than it's something that she can't do. I just think, Day, the middle throne, it's the most visible position. It's
big dog with the big
better
chair,
for
man.
her, for her gambit, let's say, for her need to kind of stay in the shadows for the most part, to let Day go down in other ways. The Dawn thing was a very visible. Dusk was in favor of it. Day was kind of against it, so there was a little bit there. The Dusk part is they're away in a room that no one's been in 600 years. Things like that. And you could argue, I would argue that she felt probably confident that this Day would be his own downfall. I mean, when did she really come to that conclusion? Probably when he went to Trantor, and it was probably like, okay, he'll probably get himself into some shit he can't get out of here. But
another reason to hire Bell.
That specific line, she says, like, "You're too far gone." That's like the last thing she ends up saying to him. So maybe it literally took up until that moment where she was like, "I could kill you, I could walk away." Like that would have been the deciding moment, but she had bigger priorities where she still, if she chose to, could have killed him because he strayed too far from the genetic purity.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's all guesswork at this point, though.
We talked about it throughout this season there was moments where she kind of was almost offering him an off-ramp.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
To the whole destroying the dynasty aspect of things, So, and she does love them. So she doesn't want to kill them. It feels
directed,
like, when there's literally no other option. And I think for the Day situation, there tends to be a lot more options involved, while the Dusk situation, there was no other option. The Dawn situation from last season, there was really no other option in her mind. So
yeah, and we've also discussed this. You can't just be snapping necks left and right every time you think something's going to go wrong with one of the Cleons.
Also fair, but that was a great way. I called it out in must have been last recording, so episode 8 or 9 of when Rue is like, Cloud Dominion can restore memories, and we were like, okay, what's the larger implication of that? And it literally came full circle here, and where it was, she said, you can just wipe our memories, and Demerzel was like, you guys created the tech that I can't trust that. So that ended up being like her own downfall, like the reason why she ended up dying, that she couldn't be saved because the possibility was out there that she could just have her memories restored.
Not to be biased, but this might have been the best Dusk. That's me, right?
Oh, lucky you.
Yeah,
well, he was fucking slanging that thing.
Yeah. Rue was a great character too, so I was sad to see her go.
This was a good this was a good Dusk, Luke. You did a good job.
Thanks.
He had some experiences that no other Dusk had, that's for sure.
Yeah, first one down there in 600 years. Yeah. We got to talk to our ex-Bang, which doesn't really happen often in Empire, so that was cool. But let me just throw it out there, the final scene of this bucket, and then we can probably move on to Ignis after we get our thoughts. But this is back to the Demerzel of it all, where after she, I guess, ends the conversation with Dawn, she goes and decants 3 fresh Cleons, says she's never done this before. You could see she's still transferring all the memories to their head, so they should still theoretically be relatively similar to what they were. But the bigger thing is that she now has the Prime Radiant. She knows how to use it. She's learning how to read it. So that's going to be the biggest game changer of how things play out in a different way, thanks to Harry, thanks to Vault Harry in season 3, 150 years in the future, because she's now also looking at this map of how humanity is going to move in trends And what that power does for her has to be just like increasing her reach exponentially. And that's such a cool concept, because is she going to become more evil? Is she going to somehow become a little bit more empathetic because she now sees the end point of humanity? It's just an interesting philosophical question of what she's really going to do with it.
Yeah, I wonder what the
We
play
talked-
is there from Harry. You know, is he just trusting in her zeros
Logical
and
side.
ones?
Yeah.
Robotic
Yeah.
nature that it's beneficial, or is there a play there that like will? It seems like it's giving the Empire a boon, when in reality it's like handing them a poison chalice. I don't know. I think I would prefer it to be that way, where it's like a long-term play of like giving them this seems like it's a good thing for them, but in reality it's a bad thing and it's good for me. I would like that.
I almost see this as a slam dunk for Harry, just because we did talk about it with her being the zeros and ones, the logical side of things. Her directive is her directive no matter what. And that is something that we're going to have to tackle. She's going to have to tackle. Harry, somebody's going to have to tackle it at some point if she's going to become someone that's on our side. But I can't imagine someone like Demerzel, if she's seeing without the veil of the directive, I can't imagine she doesn't see the prime rating and say, "Okay, Harry was right." So why
Right.
wouldn't she be more empathetic towards the Foundation at this point, except for her directive? And that's going to be another thing that she's going to have that's constantly going against her in her inner turmoil in her mind, where it's now I fully logically see it right in front of my face that Empire is doomed and Harry is correct, but I'm still going to freaking try because I
Mhm.
have to.
Yeah, her
Always
and
gonna be
that
one to
cube
watch.
is something that will hopefully get a big focus at the start of season 3. You know, that thing isn't going anywhere, so hopefully she has it. Although she's gonna have to
Mhm.
do that stupid flourish every time to bring it out. Hopefully, over the
Yeah, right.
152 years or whatever, she figured out how to not have to do that, so I don't have to watch it.
Do it off screen. Um, but one last question here when it comes to this Prime Radiant.
Would
Would now there be 3?
there's
Does
really no
Vault
rules, so
Harry
yeah.
still have a Prime Radiant? Now there's
No.
the fifth.
Why would Vault Harry have one?
He
But they all
gave it to her, but
exist.
as long as the Prime Radiant exists, doesn't exist in the Vault as in superposition as well, no
I
matter
think
what.
it's existing in superposition between Trantor and Ignis now.
Yeah, I don't
Was
know.
there any reason to believe that it always existed inside the vault outside of just them using
The Vault is
the
the box
vague?
of dark matter, bro.
I guess, yeah. I mean, so then can't he just give one to everybody and there's just a million
Well,
Prime Radiants all over the place?
You
well, the
get a
reason
rating. You
yeah,
get a
you get it
rating.
already. The reason I ask is because could this end up being a way to spy, a way to have conversations between? We know that
Yeah.
Sal was able to speak with Harry. Now, Harry won't have that physical Harry won't have that information unless did we see her tell that to Gale?
But
I can't remember.
that actually is a good thought, because what if the real reason Harry had to give Demerzel the Prime Radiant was now that Gale can use it to then talk? Because if you can go through the Prime Radiant to basically talk on the other side, maybe there's some need for Gale to be able to show up and talk to the leaders, Day, Dusk, Dawn, Demerzel
Yeah.
on Trantor,
Yeah.
because that could be a good reason of why he had to do that down the line.
Yeah, I like
I
that.
feel like I feel like Vault Harry wouldn't have just so easily given up the Prime Radiant.
Yeah. Oh,
There's
there's
a
a
I feel
play.
like
There's
he's
reason.
always a
gonna.
play.
No,
I
no, I know
mean,
there's a play. I know there's a play, but I'm saying the guy goes a little rogue. So, even when it comes to I'm the left hand or I'm the left thumb, whatever it is, I don't want my story to end. Is he going rogue here? Is he becoming even more sentient? Does he have his own plans? Giving the Prime Radiant to Demerzel for the 1,000th time, is that what his directive? Is that what he was supposed to do according to OG Harry? I'm saying now he no longer has his tool. Or does he? Whatever. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, we're pretty off the rails from OG Harry's plan, I think, at this
Yeah.
yeah.
point.
Mhm.
So
Okay, let us move over to Ignis. There's not too many scenes, but the scenes that we get are always important because it's our main character, Gale, here, and Harry, who's biologically alive. And that's what we figure out how that's even possible. Like, that's the first grouping of scenes. I'm just taking it as Gale has such a strong psychic, tellem level, mentalic ability
Tell him.
that when we already knew this, because she said it, I felt him drowning, and they expand upon it now that when that happened, she was basically warping her mind into his and then using her ability to then control the guard that was watching him and then switch their places. I can buy all that. The hardest part for me to really buy is how she permanently just implanted the image of Harry's face on his body for anybody that comes into the area. But we're so far past the point of hard sci-fi that I can't even act like I can understand any of it. But that is the explanation we're given. And while this happens, it's all pretty quick. The other part I'll just put in there and then lob it over to you guys is we find out that Tellum was in some way manipulating the free will of every single person in the mentalic cult, including
Yeah.
which I think kind of explains somewhat Lauren, I think his name. I always forget this guy's name. Maybe that's why he was acting that way, because it does seem like there was humanity and goodness, and there would be no reason for all these guys to be so aggressive. But if Tellum literally had her hand on every single one of their minds, that one makes her cooler in hindsight, and two, and shows you how strong she was and everything, and two, explains a little bit more to me. I don't know.
Yeah.
What do you guys think? Yeah.
The explanation of Harry being alive and the tandem brain exercises, Gale having to do like what he's doing, just gets a big fat sure for me.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
me
I'm
too.
just-
Me too.
Sure. Okay.
Well, the only reason
Yeah.
I think it should be okay is because if you're seeing Tellum being able to control all these people, Gale's stronger. So she's like the strongest ever, like the chosen one is how I'm taking it. And that might not even be correct. I'm just assuming because she's the main character of the story. So you got to give her some OP abilities to expand past what Tellum could do. So I'll take it, but I don't love it. I'll take it though.
Yeah. It's whatever.
Yeah. I fully was just like, all right, whatever, dude. I am
Yeah.
okay. I'm okay with Tellum having her hand in the minds of every person, every character on the planet. That is fine with me because she was the villain, quote unquote. Everybody drank. She, was very powerful, so that is fine.
Why is that a quote
Gale's,
unquote? I feel like she was the villain without the quote unquote.
yeah, I guess, yeah. I mean, I guess they really fully turn her villain at the end of the story. I mean,
She was like
Jimmy just wants to
enslaving these
drink.
people. Yeah.
He's just trying to get everyone lit.
I just
for the
wanted you guys to
finale.
drink. I didn't do a quote unquote this episode yet, so I just want to do it. I was meaning
I've
it in
never
the way-
questioned a quote unquote before, but that one, I
Yeah,
don't
no,
know,
I
you
was
couldn't let
I
that
was
go
meaning
by.
it. I was meaning it in the way where she didn't believe she was the villain. So
Yeah, but that's
Yeah,
Voldemort
you don't
doesn't
either,
believe
bro.
he's the villain either.
You would use her powers
Yeah.
the same way. You'd be like, all right, subscribe to Bingetown TV.
everybody hit subscribe on the Core Podcast and give us a
5-star
five-star review right
reviews.
now. That's
Everybody make a
hilarious.
mule
All right.
noise at home.
So quote unquote. Anyway.
Great point.
But the Gale stuff, yeah, it's fine. It's whatever. But my problem with the Gale stuff of her being super strong is that she just literally showed up on this planet, learned about it, and now I mastered it.
Yeah.
Well, that to me is like classic main character. I'm not going to think too deep about that, and this will, I guess, be a transition into kind of what happens at the end, almost kind of the whole Salvor aspect of things, with the little kid who we've been sketched out by. We never fully trusted him. I think this was my biggest nitpick of the whole episode, was the way that this all went down. I think in a vacuum, the idea of Tellum's mind still being in someone and having this last ditched petty effort, although maybe you could argue it would be better for her to lay low and instead of just killing Gale immediately.
Yeah.
I don't really know, but I mean, Gale's a little shocked in the moment, but I feel like her powers and abilities are so much better and bigger than Tellum's are at this moment. and maybe she's not used to, and it's not her instinct to take over someone's mind, but she could totally have stopped him from doing that in the first place, it felt like to me. And then the second part of it was just the timing of like Salvor sitting crisscross applesauce,
Yeah.
then like getting up and like being able to
Teleported, bro.
run, and I was just like, okay, whatever.
So here, let me answer one couple of those things. One, Sal has the ability. Oh, she's past, not future. I was going to say that maybe she
Yeah.
sensed it and that you can write it away in that way. Okay, I won't even touch that. But I'm still on like Gail was only able to do those OP abilities because of her connection to Harry, and she was like having
Mhm.
like a life or death scenario. I don't think she's at the point where she just looks at somebody and she can just mind control them yet. I think that might be
Wait, I
something
hope
she
not.
grows. Yeah, because I mean we haven't seen any training. I don't know if there's training montages in this type of show, but
But I mean, she
you know,
controlled that dude over all of that distance, the guard. I mean, she totally took over his mind. She wasn't even looking at him like
but that's the
any
life
of
and
that.
death
And also,
that I'm allowing.
she's having a gun pointed at her, and she is literally has this look of surprise where she's assuming she's going to be shot. I mean, that's fairly life or death
Yeah.
to me. Again, this is when it feels like a lot of the bigger criticisms I have about the show usually fall into situations like this, where it's like they have an idea of what they want to happen of A to B, and then the filling in the cracks of how we get to A to B is usually where I find the issue with it. Because I don't have an issue at all with, again, this in a vacuum of like Sal sacrificing herself to save Gale because the last remnants of Tellum's mind is able to take someone over, and then it shows us that the future can be altered. I think all of that in a vacuum works fine, perfectly well. It's just sometimes the execution with my eyeballs is kind of like, okay, that seems like they just threw some things in there to make it happen.
Yeah, I can see that.
I agree. And I also think that we don't have to have this conversation on this podcast. We'll wait until we see what they do in season 3 with it. But a conversation could be had about, are they writing themselves into a little bit of a corner here with these powers? Are they going to make Gale too strong by accident? Are these powers a little OP where we're constantly going to be like, why didn't Gale just take that control of that guy's mind? Or why didn't Gale telepathically push this person away like he did to Sal at one, or she did to Sal at one point? I think that your answer now, Luke, is fine. Like I agree that she was basically in a state where we know throughout this season that suffering, specific suffering, is where the power gets elevated. And Harry was, of course, in the middle of death, the middle of dying. He was suffering. So that awoken the power in her. And then she was able to fully concentrate. She was, isolated, etc. So I can buy there's a reason why she could do it with the Harry situation and not in the moment.
Mhm.
But I just want to see how they develop these powers and the rules around them. I always say, we always say in Bingetown in the core that we like rules when it comes to powers like this.
Yeah.
And there is a
Yep.
little bit of a scare, when it comes to us questioning certain things that, there's a risk that are they going to not give rules, and is it going to annoy us, or are we just going to have to sit back and be entertained?
I think that they've built up the mule, not so much at this point, but enough that where he seems like a level of an adversary where like that can be the balance to her also being powerful. Like if he's equally as powerful or maybe even stronger than her with these somewhat broken powers, then that adds some balance to the equation.
Right, like
Balance
he
of the
could block
force.
her or something. Yeah.
Yeah.
My only thing to add to that too is like I have a fear in the back of my mind that why are they assuming Tellum didn't just body hop to somebody else?
Also
And then
true.
also to add to that, which we're going to take it through to the next couple of scenes, and we're pretty much closing out after that, besides the flash forward. Sal dies, of course, and we see her body
Mhm.
burn and everything. Is she powerful enough that she could have hopped her mind into something just that we don't really know about yet? And that's how they bring her back. And then she somehow gets a biological body that looks like herself to then put us back on track to where she can die next to Gale. I don't know, but I'm always going to be thinking about like, why wouldn't they be worried Tellum's around still?
Yeah.
I
I'll
don't
tell
know.
you what, it's happened before.
Yeah.
It's happened before. Somebody's body's died in their mind. She's in the vault.
Yeah.
Yeah, she got uploaded to the vault.
So all of the rest of this is something we have a little bit talked about already, which is Harry and Gail planning the future of what they're going to do. I was very surprised that Harry folded so quickly because he was going to stay behind, teach the Mentalics the way of the Foundation, prep them for when Gail needs to face off against the Mule. She does a little persuading, and they both decide that they're just going to be like a prophets again,
God.
almost in that
Yeah.
way. Yeah, where they're just in the main room, like the throne room. They'll be woken up every once in a while just to check on the state of things as they go towards that 152 years into the future. But it's just a good conversation because I like these two just need to end on a good note because there's been a lot of turmoil between them. But Harry does some good empathetic hearing here where he's trying to relate to her, talk about Yana and talk about Sal. Like it was just a really nice conversation. I don't think it's really theory material, but it was a good character moment for the two.
I think that they had a great ending to this season for Harry and Gail. I think that from the moment we got the reveal that Harry was saved by Gale till the end of the season, whether we want to talk a little shit on how Harry was saved or not. The way that the actress was able to articulate her feelings for Harry at this moment, we know that they were having, their throwdowns throughout the season. We know that they weren't happy with each other, but we know deep down they have love for each other, the father-daughter kind of bond. And Gail's explained that when she's explaining how she was able to protect Harry. She has so much emotion towards Harry that she felt him dying. And then Harry has a really, really nice retort to Gale when Gale says, like, I just need Sal's death to mean something. And he's like, it does mean something. You're alive and you are going to continue with your work because your daughter decided to save your life, and she proved that the future can be changed, and it gave you the hope that this is still a possibility. Continue with living and going with our work and honor your daughter. I thought it was a great end for the two of them. Now,
Mm-hmm.
we always have that situation where you're like, all right, just hope that they keep us up. Hope these mentalics wake us up.
Right.
Yeah, I think I was a little salty that the Harry flashback stuff wasn't actually a way to tell him know that the prime radium can be flat. And that was like the small detail, but it actually serving the purpose here of giving us just a more emotional background of where Harry's coming from. It's not lip service. He's not just saying these things to Gale to make her feel better. Like, he believes them because he has lived them and we watched him live them. So, it adds more weight to that. So that to me is a perfectly fine consolation, let's say, because obviously I want to be right all of the time. And in terms of him folding, I feel like that is just a comment on his ego. We've talked around it and directly about it a lot of, Harry does have this underlying desire to be involved in all of it all the time. And like Gale being like, hey, why wouldn't you be in the future with me? That's really all he needed to hear. Like, that's all I would need to hear too. I'd be like, all right, fuck yeah, don't leave me behind.
Mm-hmm.
Like, let's get it popping. Let's just 150 years in the future.
The same thing with Brother Constant when it's like only one of them can get out. They're like, all right, Hober's like, you can go in. She's like, okay. And she's like, that's it.
Yeah, say less.
She didn't play the check dance with him. She was like, no, you.
Yeah,
She's like,
exactly.
All right, bro.
Yeah. I do feel selfish, but he was like, oh, okay,
no.
like, you want me to come? Like, I'll come. I don't want to invite myself on your vacation, but if you're leaving a spot open for me, I'm in there.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And even Harry with his all-knowing, and it could have easily have been a thing where he was like, I just need Gale to say it. I believe I should be there too, but Gale's got to invite me.
Mm-hmm.
I want her to want me there.
And then they go in, man, and you do see the close of it all, which it felt like they moved quickly. I thought she mentioned there a possibility, like, let's wait a year so we can prep these guys, but they just jumped right in.
I was so confused by that.
Not going to comment on that, but this leads into the time skip where we do see our first glimpse of the future. We see the Mule, who I just love his energy. I know that the actor switched for season 3, and now we have Euron Greyjoy as our guy, but I just feel like they have the idea of what they want the character to be, a little bit on the edge of like psychotic and obsessive with Gale because she's been haunting his dreams, but that's his sole mission that he needs to find her before she finds him, and that's just going to be the entire premise of season 3. And I'm beyond excited. I think all the promo looks cool. I've been avoiding trailers, of course, but I've been seeing some stills naturally by being on the internet, and I'm just like ready to go. I could not be more excited. I just hope that all the people in the vault are alive, so we get some of those actors back. Of course, we're gonna have Demerzel and Lee Pace back in some form. It's just setting up for such a good season. I think this is going to be the most mainstream season because Apple's been blowing up more. Foundation is one of the best shows on Apple. It's got the best CGI. I think it's primed to be a household name as far as Apple TV shows go.
No finger in the bum jokes allowed from the mule. Jimmy doesn't get that reference.
No, what is that from?
Euron Greyjoy.
Oh.
None of that BS. I want the mule to be crazy, and I want the mule to be actually like scary.
Yeah.
Yes, I agree.
He's so powerful, but you can't trust his mind. That's the vibe I got out of the final scene here. I don't entirely know anything more than that. That was the vibe I got off of it, and I love that because Euron Greyjoy was supposed to be a bit of like loose cannon, but he was kind of ended up being weird in Game of Thrones, where like they tried to straddle a line, and I don't think the mule will need to straddle a comedic line in any way. I want him to be just like straight out.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean there can be a little Euron Greyjoy to him because, like you said, Kyle, Euron Greyjoy is written a certain way and he's portrayed a different way in the show. So the actor I think he understands the psychotic, the little cray, maybe very cray situation that should be going on with the mule. So I'm excited. I would love to know why they decided to switch the actor.
He's a big name actor, wasn't it?
I know he's been in. I didn't want to look up why he was switched just in case there was spoilers. Let's see.
The interesting thing is that if they didn't show this flash forward, they could have made it in universe canon that Sal dying like changed the future and changed who the mule actually was. But of course, they showed him on the other side of the changes. So who knows? But
I don't know if and I don't want to see any spoilers for anything. So because I know that people throw book spoilers pretty easily, especially when it comes to the mule. So I don't want to look too much up. But
speaking of book spoilers, I just want to say that I think it was Delco Nick in our Discord in the Foundation spoiler tab, which I've tried to avoid because again, I didn't read the books. The one thing he did say, and he like sent us a comment, was that in the Foundation book series, the Mentalics as a whole are way, way less important and more subtle than like a forefront plot point. So they took a lot of liberties to change things. We're so far away from the source material that I don't care or know the difference anyway.
Yeah.
But I thought that was interesting. Like that they weren't necessarily like a force behind Tellum, I don't think.
Okay. All right. Interesting. So interesting that we should drink.
Could be.
Are we at the end here? Because I do one of the top 5 lists that I mentioned off the top.
Yeah, let's do it.
I will just say that the mule's OG actor, and I'm gonna mispronounce this, so just in advance, Mikkel Persbrandt, he's gonna be in the Odyssey. I don't know if there was any type of
scheduling conflicts.
Yeah, potential. I mean, because I feel like Foundation season 3 probably filmed much earlier, but
I mean, maybe a while ago. Yeah,
it wasn't potentially ready for the actual commitment of being in all of the episodes, extended scenes. There was other things that were going on. So,
Kyle, you can go first while you're talking.
Oh shit. Okay, I will fire from the hip here, and I will say that maybe I'll throw the characters out and then try to get them in an order. I feel like Day is a must. Demerzel has to be there. Day, Demerzel, Belrios. That's a good 3 right there. 5 is kind of tough. I don't know how much I actually like other characters enough to pop them in there. at this point. I guess mostly because I feel like Gale and Sal, the Ignis plotline just was kind of meh for the most part of the season. Let's throw the mule in there. Why not?
Okay.
I rock
What
with the
about Harry?
mule. I guess, but like, do I actually like Harry, or is he just like a main character, like a big character? I don't know at this point. You know what? We're gonna put Harry in there just because he was funny this season. Genuinely, he had some actually funny moments that made me laugh. Polly's probably floating around there. You know, he could. There's a chance for him now that
I
he's still alive.
I didn't expect him to be alive, man.
No,
Yeah.
not at all. Okay, I mean,
So-
you did list 5.
Yeah, that's
So I don't know.
fine.
in
I
that
don't-
order too, because that's the order that I thought of them. So
So
far.
Okay.
you're telling me, Kyle, that Dawn or Dusk doesn't do it for you at all?
Not at that level. No.
Okay.
Jimmy, you want to go ahead?
Yeah, I'll go. I'm gonna say number 1 is Day, number 2 is Demerzel, number 3 is Harry. I'm not gonna say which Harry. I'm just gonna say Harry.
Mm-hmm.
Number 4 is probably Bell, and number 5 is Hober.
Damn,
So
we
after I
have the
gave you shit, I
same.
didn't put-
We have the same top 5 and the same tiers of the same top 3 and the same bottom 2. Where I'm Day, Harry, Demerzel, then Hober and Bell Rio.
Okay.
So we're the same exact. And for what it's worth, Gale would be 6 probably, but
Yeah.
Brother Constance, but they don't make the cut. They just don't make the cut, even though I love them as characters. They have chances.
Yeah.
They have a chance to jump next season, and Sal potentially would have too if she just had another season. I will say that upon this whole Rooks and Vets that rewatch that we did, Demerzel and Sal were like the most entertaining to watch in a rewatch because there's so many reveals that happen around Sal that you can pay attention to, and definitely just having Demerzel's backstory was amazing to go back and watch because, like you guys noted, and I kept saying at the end of season 1 that season 2 was a big Demerzel season, but once you have all that info, rewatching season 1 makes her such a better character just on its face.
Right.
So, but either way, it sounds like we're all kind of like-minded in general. It's going to be
Yeah.
interesting to see how that changes after season 3, though.
Couple parting shots here before we end the episode. Just some things that we don't have to talk about specifically, but I do just want to make sure that our fandom, the fandom of Foundation, our listeners, know that we're going to be looking into this in season 3. Some of the things we did touch on, some things I'm going to quickly bring up. Number 1, Kyle, I really like the idea. I'm not going to say I like the idea, but I like that it exists now in my head that there is a chance that Sal jumped mines and we can bring her back. I don't know that I necessarily want to use that. Like, I don't know that I necessarily like that idea for the story. I just like that we can talk about it and it's out there because I wasn't thinking that. Now, on
Okay.
the same vein here, we never found out who brought Harry back in this season. You know,
Right,
we
the
don't know who cloned
Yana
Harry.
stand-in, or the
Right.
not even the Yana
Kale.
stand-in, the other mathematician.
Yeah, right.
Kale.
So we don't understand.
Polly.
Her name was Kale. Yeah.
Oh, Collie. I
Polly,
said
yeah. I thought
Polly.
you said Polly. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we don't understand anything about that yet. Hopefully we get answers. I feel like we have to. Also, just paying attention to how they further reveal the Mentalix powers, the Mule's powers, Gale's powers, how they further talk about time travel, because we know when it's done right, it's phenomenal. When it's done wrong, it's one of the most disgusting things you could ever see on the screen. I don't know if that's the right way of saying it, but it could be bad. So Kyle's
Sounds
reaction
like you don't like it.
maybe pump the brakes a little bit, but
Sounds like you're not a fan of it. So
I'm not a fan of shitty loopholes via time travel. So I need some rules. We're gonna find out hopefully kind of quickly the deal with how Gale saw the future, if it was actually changed, if Sal's going to be back with another body, all of those kind of things. But either way, guys, unless you have any parting shots, I'm ready to roll us out.
my only thing is just to shout. We talked about Lee Pace. I feel like we mentioned Lee Pace's name a lot in every episode, but Demerzel's actress, I think, is just unbelievable.
Ugh, the best. Yeah,
I mean,
one of the
this
best.
episode, obviously, but just throughout, she's just been absolutely fantastic. Just the way that she portrays the robotic nature that wants to be free and is like glimpses of is more human than robot, and then other moments is more robot than human. It's just, she just does it so well. Her name, I'm not going to pronounce it because Spaceman94 from the Discord specifically said don't try to pronounce her last name, even though it's only spelled Birn.
Yeah, it seems like it should be easy, but
Yeah,
our
I mean, to
Discord
me it
members
reads
warned us.
Laura. Yeah, to me it reads Laura Byrne, but
Yeah.
I would assume it's not actually pronounced like that. But for all the people that might want to look her up, that is her name. I just think she's fantastic, and I cannot wait to get the first scene of her in season 3.
And
Agreed.
I don't know. I tried to avoid again, but I thought I saw a still of Lee Pace with a beard next season, which that could be new.
I did see that as well.
Are you gonna have to grow one for us, Jimmy, if he has a beard since you're gay next
Oh,
season?
I cannot. I might have to wear a fake one because I cannot grow a beard. Episode 1, everyone watch on YouTube. I'll be wearing a wig, and because I do believe he has long hair and a beard.
Okay.
So
What about the
I
abs?
saw a few stills. Oh, they're not happening. We all know I'm about masks, bro.
This is my moment as Brother Darkness. I'm out.
Yeah, true.
Yeah, take it sleazy, Luke. You're out. I'm about to be beautiful.
I can't wait to paint.
You're going to be painting, man. Luke is going to restart the cycle. He's going to be young and beautiful, man. So,
Love her,
guys,
Lukey.
first of all, Luke, thank you. 2 seasons. First of all, you brought us onto this. You spoke its praises, and you guided us through these 2 seasons beautifully. A lot of our Discord members did give us some great feedback on doing that. We know from Rooks and Vets, me and Kyle have been vets at other times, and it is tough not to give any spoilers. So thank you, Luke. You're the man. All of our listeners, thank you so much for following along with us for 2 seasons. But guess what? We're just getting started. So if you're just finding us, because I'm sure there are some of you who are just hitting us up because it's the finale coverage. So if you didn't follow us for the first 2 seasons and only listen to this finale episode, please hit that subscribe button because we're going to be doing this week to week. We are ready to go for Foundation Season 3. We are all in. Murderbot is just ending for us as well, but we are now, this group right here, the Cleons are ready to go to fully focus on Foundation Season 3. If you're interested in any other coverage that's not Apple TV, check out the Binge Empire podcast. We're going to be covering a lot over there coming up. We have Dexter Resurrection, Alien Earth, Squid Game, Stranger Things, Wednesday. So many big shows that are obviously not Apple TV will be over there. So if you want to check that out, we'll leave it all in the description. And lastly, one of the most fun things about this is speaking with all of you guys. So hit up our Discord, please. Obviously, totally free, bingetowntv.com/Discord, or click the link in the description. Join us for Foundation. Join us for any talk at all. We have a blast talking with every single one of you. Once again, we are the Core Podcast, and I'm excited. I will be Day next time you hear from me. Thank you so much for listening.